Hey, what's up? This is Afrobeat here. Techwear is known for its high-end luxury clothing, but there's also a whole host of very cheap, often drop-shipped goods designed to imitate those kinds of looks, or at the very least, give people some ability to get the Techwear clothing look at a much lower cost. And if you've been browsing many of these Techwear dropshippers or other kinds of dodgy retailers, you may well have come across a pair that look like this. Almost all of them will carry some variant of these, and if they look familiar, yes, it's because I also bought a pair of these a while ago and ended up being shipped essentially a fake version that didn't really look like how they were supposed to in the pictures. Well, we're back, and at a cost of approximately $30, so a little bit more than the last pair, I actually managed to get myself the legit version of these Techwear cargo pants, the ones in so many different retailer sites and so many different Google image searches. Yep, these are the real ones. They say Land Combat Group on them and not whatever text was on the last pair. So I got these from a retailer called Elfric Eden. Now they have their own website, but if you go on their official Taobao shop, they sell exactly the same stuff. They carry the same stock, but it is way cheaper. You can see here they do say Elfric Eden in a couple of key places, but aside from that, these are exactly the same product that you will find at all kinds of retailers. We'll take a close look at these. I feel like I kind of got a $30 pair of pants for my $30. You know, they're not particularly good, but they're also pretty cheap. They're kind of on par with those H&M things that we looked at before. These are better in some areas, worse in others. What I take issue with though is brands selling this exact product at a much bigger markup, because for people who are new to techwear, maybe new to fashion in general, spending $60 to $80 on a pair of pants might actually be quite an investment, a bit of an outlay, and that gives people an expectation that they're going to get, you know, a more technical pant, something that's better, something that's cooler than the things that they might typically have access to or what you might buy from fast fashion retailers. But then something like this shows up, and ultimately you're probably going to be disappointed if you pay a large amount of money for these, and it might even put you off this kind of style in general. Alright, let's get these on and see what we're looking at. I'll stick model and up at the side there so we can have a look. I think the first thing that you'll notice is they are pretty striking aesthetically, and they have a very clear visual style. It's an aggressive shape thanks to those tight cuffs at the bottom there, which gives them a very different look to your standard BDU pair of cargos. But then you've got a little bit more space up in the thigh area, so they don't look like a skinny pair of chinos or jeans or whatever either. If you combine that with, of course, the Techwear approved cargo pockets, asymmetric detailing, one bigger and two smaller ones on the other side, and you've got these paratrooper style straps which come underneath the leg too. That element in particular is really key to the technical aesthetic these things are clearly going for, because you would never find that on a regular pair of cargos. Their reference point for these is aviation gear, where a strap like this would normally be used to secure the contents of cargo pockets. So when you're doing some sick barrel rolls and stuff, you don't get all your cigarettes and whatever else you might be carrying falling out all over the cockpit. Combine that with the all black finish, the logo on one pocket, the text on the other. There are enough little signifiers here to clearly show that this is an urban technical piece of clothing. And if you don't have much frame of reference, maybe you're not too experienced with all of these different kinds of things, this might be something that you've never really seen before. You probably won't find stuff like this at fast fashion retailers or even very cheap brands. To give my opinion on the general aesthetic of this stuff though, I think while they certainly look better than the fake versions, the jogger cuff is a little bit of a lazy way of achieving that kind of tapered silhouette. A decent quality pair of performance or cool Techwear cargos like this, the actual shape of the pant itself will be tapered in this nice shape. You don't have to style them into joggers to do that, to make them kind of grip the ankle. I don't think that's a particularly good look, to be honest. And now that I've seen so many different kinds of pants with different pocket designs and all these kinds of things, like how basic these really are is very apparent to me, and it kind of feels like, you know, the little pocket, everything's a bit kind of stuck on. It doesn't feel very integrated, and I think the look of them, while maybe at a first glance appear like, oh, they've got things on them, they're very technical, they actually kind of look very basic. I think the downsides of these start to reveal themselves quite quickly after putting them on. First of these is with the material. Now, I definitely complained about the material of the fake ones. They were these it's made of this horrible kind of starched cotton. It really did not feel very nice. This is very different. This is a kind of water resistant nylon, which sounds great in theory. Yeah, we've got technical performance. These are indeed water resistant. You can pour water on these. It's going to run right off. However, something that is quite common with cheap technical clothing like this, which claims water resistance, you've heard it before, of course. Breathability, really not good, and that is definitely the case here. It doesn't take very long wearing these for you to really notice how warm these are, and they feel quite cloying, quite stifling to actually wear, which is not really great, especially if you have to wear these for a long time. You're wearing these in warmer weather, particularly with that tight cuff at the bottom. It really feels like it seals in the flavour, and not in a good way. They also lack any space or articulation in the knees. That's the same with the crotch as well, which means that they don't feel that great to move around in. And what you'll probably find if you make any exaggerated maneuvers, sitting down, walking upstairs, high jump kick, stuff like that, you'll find that these start riding up. And because that jogger cuff is very tight, they'll kind of stay there, like up your shin a little bit, making them look too short, which is not really great. You don't want to feel like you have to spend all day pulling these back down because they've ridden up. What you'll find in more considered designs, more kind of reputable brands, is they will use a little bit of extra space or gusseting at the crotch, as well as more space or these material darts at the knees, which help the pant move with you when you're walking around. You'll see that not just in kind of high-end techwear products. The acronym P10 is, of course, the best example of highly articulated knees. Even kind of outdoor brands and hiking stuff where movement is really important, you'll see that kind of detail used as well. Even cheaper brands will do this as well, and you'll find those kinds of articulation details in quite a few of the pants back in that affordable Techwear cargos video that I did a few weeks ago. These things alone make them kind of annoying to wear, frankly, and I certainly wouldn't want to recommend anything that it feels like you have to make a sacrifice just by putting them on. That kind of, well, they look kind of cool, but I'm going to be kind of uncomfortable in them potentially all day. And that's certainly not a great quality to have when we're talking urban technical performance gear. And I know a lot of people do take the view that, well, I'm not really interested in the performance side of techwear, I'm just interested in the aesthetics. Firstly, that's 100% fine. I don't think you have to subscribe to the narrative that all of your clothing needs to be ultra functional or whatever. It's fine to buy things because you like the look of them, but I also feel like those aesthetics should not be getting in the way of everyday wear. The cargo pockets are fine. That's certainly an upgrade from the fake versions of these, which literally had like fake flaps. These are real pockets, amazing, and they're secured with Velcro as well. They're maybe a little bit lower than I would like, so things in there tend to swing around a little bit, but at least the ones on the right hand side are kind of an appropriate size for a phone. The straps do feel better than the fake version. They have one extra buckle on them as well, but they still do feel a little bit flimsy. They're not very substantial, and they don't really hold any kind of tightness, so you can't adjust them too much in any meaningful way. Again, I'm not necessarily hating on the premise of straps and things like that being there for aesthetic purposes. I think it's fine to have aesthetic details on clothing. After all, this stuff is about looking good, looking cool at the end of the day. I don't think you have to be able to justify everything. However, I don't actually think these look that good. They feel a little bit tacked on. They don't really seem super integrated with the rest of the design, and it kind of feels like they're there to fulfill some kind of techwear quota. Like, these are techwear cargo pants, so we just put the straps on them. If you compare these to my Maharishi cropped cargos, they also use some kind of dangly straps coming out the back. They're basically just there for aesthetic purposes, let's be honest, but I think they're a lot better integrated with the design. They've got that nice tonal thing going on. They've got the nice branding, so the straps themselves actually feel a lot nicer, and yeah, it's a big baggy relaxed look with big dangly straps. It all just kind of works together, and you can hide these away if you don't want them, so you have a bit of flexibility there. Also, take a look at the Gorilla Group PLO2 cargos from a couple of years ago. You'll see pretty much exactly the same paratrooper style strap that you see on these pants here, but you can see the over-designed, over-engineered technical workwear aesthetic really runs through the Gorilla Group cargos a lot stronger than it does on these ones here. So those paratrooper straps, those are just one design element out of, tens that are on these. So they don't really stick out too much. They don't over-centralize themselves on the design. It's just a far more integrated part. Whereas on these, where you've just got a couple of pockets and then the straps, they just kind of stick out. They don't quite feel right. In fact, a lot of these cheap Techwear cargos borrow design elements from Gorilla Group. And they've done this to the extent that if you look at Gorilla Group now, it's a very different brand aesthetically. They basically totally changed their direction. And I think partly to get away from all of the brands like these kinds of guys that basically knocked off what they used to do quite a few years ago. You may as well go to the source and you'll probably see it done a little bit better and executed more effectively than on the cheaper things like this. These are also missing a few things that you might expect from a decent pair of pants. They've got no fly at all. You just have to like pull these down like a child when you want to go to the bathroom. And they've only got one back pocket as well. No dedicated phone pockets or anything like that either. So yeah, they're kind of lacking in like day-to-day usability kind of perspective as well to an extent. Even though, you know, they got a few bits on them at least, like the little cargo pockets. To talk briefly on sizing and quality and stuff like that, I bought these in an XL, which is one up from what I would normally purchase. And I think these are the right kind of size for me. They fit okay at the waist. They're a little bit short, but I think, to be honest, look, I'm 6'2", I'm quite high above average height. Something like this, made primarily for the Chinese market, it's just never going to fit someone of my grand stature that well. So definitely keep that in mind if you're looking to pick up something like this. In terms of construction and quality, these are definitely worlds apart from the fake version. You can see the stitching in general is done much better, although there are still some kind of messy bits and loose stitches around. They don't feel like they're going to fall apart immediately at least, which is certainly a good sign. And yeah, in a lot of areas, construction is maybe a little bit basic, but it's kind of what I would expect from a fast fashion product. And yes, as I mentioned earlier, these do have the real text on the side of here. It says, Land Combat Group. We are the Land Combat Group. Our duty is to create the walking armor to protect ourselves in the reinforced concrete forest. So at least it makes a little bit more sense than the fake ones did, although it's still borderline nonsense. And a little bit cringy, to be honest, so I'm not sure I would want this on my leg 100% of the time as I'm walking around, but there you go, at least it does say something. So overall, would I recommend that you go out and buy these? Probably not, to be honest. I think by spending a little bit more money, you can get yourself a significantly better product, something that is going to last you a longer time, something that's going to be more comfortable, something that is going to be easier to integrate in different kinds of outfits as well. I think another potential problem with something like this, it really does push you quite far down one particular path. They're kind of lacking in versatility. And to be honest, if I was going to buy a very cheap pair of cargos, I would sooner go for a military brand and go for the more traditional BDU type stuff. You'll probably get a better quality product and a more comfortable one to wear day to day. Or, you know, look at fast fashion brands, forget the water resistant stuff. It is not worth it on something this cheap because it just makes them nasty to wear. And you'll probably get something that's more comfortable, but still with this kind of technical look to an extent as well. Hopefully this look was helpful. Ultimately, I'm not trying to police what people wear. I'm not trying to do a hit piece on Elfric Eden or these cargos or whatever. I just want to try and be as objective as I can, present these things in a little bit more detail. So maybe you save your money. I certainly don't want people getting ripped off and spending like $60 to $80 on these. They are definitely not worth that. Don't do that. But yeah, you can make your own decision at the end of the day. If you've got any thoughts on these cargo pants though, definitely stick them down there in the comments. I know a lot of people in the comments of previous videos have said that they've been burned before buying from these kinds of retailers and getting stuff like this. So if that sounds like you, definitely stick your mini reviews down there in the comments. That will definitely be helpful for people. And if you enjoyed this video, if you found it useful, helpful, definitely give it a like. That is super appreciated. And it's a good signal for me as well to make more stuff along these kinds of lines. So thank you so much for watching the video, and we'll see you next week in the next one. Shout out to all the croc lovers in last week's video. Decalotus video actually changed his mind on the kind of croc shoes, so glad I could be of some assistance on that one. And shout out to Angus Hearn. Yes, definitely Hydro Mod Gang. I want to see some more cool outfits of people wearing those for sure. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you want to catch some more, there's going to be links going up at the top. And if you haven't subscribed yet, there's going to be loads more Techwear content coming out. I've got some more cheap dropshipped stuff that we can take a look at in the next couple of weeks. So we'll see how that one pans out. It's going to be a bit of an adventure for sure. So stick around for that one, and that's everything.